Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the executive session for Senate Transportation. I'd like you to join us in reciting the Pledge of Allegiance. If Senator Ward would do us the honors.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'd like to have a motion to go into executive.
Second.
Thank you. And all in favor of going into executive session? Aye. Okay. I think I'd like to start and look for a motion on Senate Bill 258. If someone would like to make a motion.
Would committee members remember to put their microphones on, please?
I'll move on to pass.
I'll second it.
Okay, we have a ought to pass and a second on SB 258 relative to the disposal of highway or turnpike funded real estate. All those in favor? Aye. None opposed?
Consent.
Second? We'll move consent 5-0. And we'll just give a minute here because I have a propensity to go too quick and I got to give Peter a chance to catch up to us.
And
So
I'll
we'll-
be glad to take that out, Madam Chair.
Oh, thank you so much.
All right, we're good. Thank you.
Okay, I would like to now ask for a motion on SB 257.
It's motion to an expedient to legislate. An expedient to legislate.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay. All those in favor?
Okay, I'm behind here again.
Oh, okay, you got to tell me to slow
I
down.
don't write that fast. I just finished the first one. So now we're on 257
Okay,
and we have,
The motion was.
well, she
I
writes
see.
on a folder, that's what it is. I don't,
Okay.
I do that after, okay. Let me show you this. This is my-
we have an amendment on it.
Aren't you 57?
There is yes, but we have to vote on the bill and then bring in the amendment.
Well, if it's an
But
ITL.
we're,
we'll-
we're ITLing it, so or if we are in agreement, it's here, so this is the,
Yeah, I have it.
okay.
I have the.
But
I have
the motion
You
is,
just go too fast and it's at the number. I have to write OTP and consent and everything else. And by the time I'm
oh, I'm
halfway
sorry,
through-
I always do it
See,
after. Okay, so we'll go slower. All right, should we start over?
Start over.
Okay. So we have a motion on SB 257 that is inexpedient to legislate and a second.
So if I may, Madam Chair,
Yes.
I tried, Senator Carson tried, and we had the amendment, but I understand that and Senator Carson has indicated to you that she feels we just can't get there, given the concerns, and so I think that it just makes sense then we'll just let it go. And because that seems to be the wishes of the sponsor, is that correct?
Well, when I explained that this was the direction we were leaning in, she said you're the chair and the committee, do what you think is best. So shall we take a vote, voice vote on inexpedient to legislate on SB 257?
Aye.
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 Move consent?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor for consent?
Aye.
Okay, who would like to take it out?
I'll take it out.
Okay, Senator Ward will take it out. Now we'll give a pause so everybody can catch up.
Finish writing. I'm ready.
Okay, okay, thank you. Always good to know. I am looking for a motion on SB 187.
I move on to pass.
I'll second.
And Madam Chair, if I may, and committee members, a lot of conversation on this and several meetings with Director Marasco and Jeff Oberdank, and a lot of calls to Homeland Security and to the Jamaican consul office, and a lot of discussion and a lot of, should we do this, should we do that, do we need this amendment, do we need that? And we'll be treating these visas a little differently from other visas, but understanding why we don't want these folks to necessarily get a license in New Hampshire, driver's license, like other visa holders may. And so it all came around to saying, well, then actually the bill as it is what we can do. And so there's no need for amendment. I think that this is a good, agreeable way forward for us. And so I think we got there. Now, who knows what the House will do, but I think in terms of a very extensive process, really for 2 years now, to just see what do we think about these. And I think it was a good process. So I think we're there.
It was a good bill. It does a lot of good.
Mhm.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
I had written down there were some technical issues that needed to be worked on, and what were those? And did we work on them?
I'd be glad to. This is what the conversation was with the director, that he thought that maybe we needed to do this or that, and then finally they decided, no, they did not.
Oh, okay.
So, but that was what we needed to discuss, and we did.
Okay. So we're all in favor, or let's take a vote.
Yep,
Everyone-
the motion is ought to pass, just so
Oh,
everyone's on the same
All
page.
right, so, and we had it seconded, because, all right, so move consent?
We still have to vote on the motion. We
Oh,
haven't voted
okay,
on the
after the
motion yet.
talk, okay.
Yep.
So, all in favor of
Aye.
aye,
I'll
all
move-
opposed, none,
I'll move consent.
second, and,
I'll take it out.
all right,
If I-
Senator Waters, why don't you do that? Okay. SB 186, before we make a motion, I would like to speak to this, if that's all
sure.
right. I first want to say that Senator Waters came forth with a good idea, and he worked really, really hard on this. But after all of the work that he did, and I'm looking at my notes, he really worked with Betsy Andrews Parker of the Stratford County CAP, and they had a way of addressing how the people are enrolled in the program. And he also found ways to fund the program. And so at this time, I don't think we need legislation for this, but I'd also be willing to hear everyone else's comments.
Well, thank you, Madam Chair. And, it's interesting in a way that, to get rid of the fiscal note, we moved a lot of the management responsibilities of it over to the Community Action Partnership. And then the question is, well, do we need to have legislation at all? Now, I kind of still think we do, because we're involving state entities in the participation and in working on the program. And I also think that the parameters that are set in legislation probably are helpful in terms of however such a program is done. And I did think it was going to help workforce development, certainly as low-income folks. On the other hand, I can see that given the kind of general uncertainty and certainly, the unlikelihood that there would be state funding at this time in it, that I get that. And so if it doesn't get through this time, fine. I'd like to vote for my own bill, so I'll do that. But if there's another motion rather than ought to pass, I understand that, and we'll move forward.
Thank you, Senator Waters. Do I have a motion?
To pass. Is that what you're saying? Or to re-refer? No.
What is your motion?
Well,
Well-
what is Senator Waters looking for?
Well, I think the chair was looking for.
I want an ITL, yes, yeah.
You weren't going to hear it from my lips.
No, but not to go unnoticed with the hard work and effort that Senator Waters put into this, okay? Really want him
And I
recognized for
appreciate
that.
that. Thank you.
Is there a second?
Second to what, to the ITL?
Yes.
Yes. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
No.
3-2.
I just want to confirm, Senator Ward, were you a yes on the ITL motion?
Yes, I was the second on the ITL.
Okay, so 3-2.
Yeah. Sorry.
No. Sorry.
Who takes it out? Do you want to take it out?
I can take it out. Is there any other bills that you would like to discuss while we're in executive session?
Well, would you like to be able to talk about 259, just to let people know what we've been talking about?
Oh, should I? Okay, that's a good idea, and then I'll let you speak to it too. So we were thinking of execing SB 259, and I decided that we should hold off because the department, DOT, does have it on the 10-year plan. And there are upcoming meetings in March. But we also heard so much testimony as to the deaths and the problems that are occurring. And so at this time, we're going to hold off because I would like to have some additional conversations with the Department of Transportation and Commissioner Cass. If you'd like to add anything to that, Senator Waters.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and we both had a conversation with Senator Chandler as well, so, we're all working together and on it. And I think the part of the consideration is that we know that the process is underway, and one of the options is to create the barrier, which I think we have a kind of consensus here that needs to be done. But the process is, where and when do we involve the legislature in that process? I do think it is important for us to have a bill at hand over the rest of this session, that if we feel we need to step in because the DOT process does not lead in the direction we think it should, that we can have a bill that we could pass still in this session. And otherwise, if the DOT decides to go with the dividing barrier, then it just becomes a process of ensuring that the increased funding that is needed will be part of the proposal coming out of the Regional Planning Commission and will come into the 10-year plan process next year so we can get that funding for it. So is that fair enough, Madam Chair, about kind of where we're at?
Yes, that's a very good assessment. And to piggyback, we both have spoken I've been spending a lot of time speaking with Senator Chandler, and we do need to do something, and it can't keep getting pushed back. But I'm trying to also be respectful to the department that it's in the 10-year plan and just want, at the end of the day, the right thing done.
So nobody else dies.
Yeah, really. And Madam Chair, why don't we at least update the rest of the folks on the ongoing discussions on 52's funding?
Okay, I'll start if that's okay. We have not exec SB 52 yet because frankly, trying to work really hard in finding a way to do this that will not raise the rate of the taxpayer. And we are working on some options, and it has not come to fruition yet. And since we're doing such a good job in our committee, staying on top and ahead of things, we're just not going to exec it till we've exhausted every reasonable possibility.
And we have a week, right? I mean, for the FN deadline, we've got a week.
March, yeah, we're already getting into March. Yeah.
Is that just next week is our last meeting before the deadline?
Yeah, so it needs to be done prior to March 9th. So there is a little bit more time.
Oh, there's a little
Yeah,
bit
it's
more. than
March.
that.
Yes.
And, just a comment too, is that I just will note in terms of the cost of the ratepayer, that Eversource went to the PUC with a request for $2 million in make-ready funding, recoverable funding, to cover what they thought would be needed for the Volkswagen funding that's going out for charging stations. And the calculation that Sam Evans Brown gave me, that if you calculate that $2 million out, it's a penny a month, 1 cent a month onto ratepayer bills. So let's say that for the $17 million from NEVI, from the feds we're getting for charging stations, let's say, and I think this is probably way over much, but let's say it's $10 million for the Make Ready. Well, that's 5 cents a month. And I do think the argument is that if you build out this infrastructure, because of the battery storage capacity and other factors, that actually you end up in the long term reducing ratepayer costs, because we're shaving the peak demand and reducing the need for more generation and transmission. So, I mean, and the PUC did find it is kind of an open question if these things do save money potentially for ratepayers, or maybe don't increase it for ratepayers. So that seemed to be kind of a wash. So I understand the principle about not wanting to increase ratepayers, but if we are talking about a nickel for which we'd get, especially in the North Country, increased development, I mean, we're hearing from the ski areas and everybody else who wants us to have the fast charge and level 2 charging too. So we'll see. And but I think that it is possible. I know Senator Bradley and Senator Ricciardi and others and Senator Lang are working on finding another source of funding just for this purpose. So we would not, for just, to kind of define it in a way, not all Make Ready forever in the future, but for right now, how much do we need, and can we find non-ratepayer funding to do it? And if that rabbit gets pulled out of a hat, then we don't have to deal with the principle of not a penny, or shall I say a nickel, more on ratepayers.
I have a question.
Yeah.
I'm under the impression, but I could be wrong, that the Volkswagen fund goes with the NEVA plan, which is the funds are spoken for. Is that wrong? Or?
There are 2 different buckets. We
Okay.
received in the Volkswagen settlement several years ago now, funding which the governor wanted to put the maximum amount that we could into electric vehicle infrastructure. It's taken us about 4 years longer than any other state to get the money out the door, and that's, beats me. But that funding and those RFPs have gone out for that funding, and those contracts are being approved. The other money we have is in the Transportation Act, which was the $17 million. That's the federal funding. It is still unclear in the rules for that funding whether or not any of it can be used for Make Ready, or whether it's just for the charging stations. I hope before too long the feds will clarify that, and I don't know what they'll do. But so that's why we are faced with the issue with that funding, as to what do we do about the Make Ready, and where does the money for that come from?
I know we're in executive session, but I don't know if I can ask if Kathleen's here from the Department of Transportation. Can you add anything to where we're at with those types of funds, or?
I think in terms of, I'm a little updated on the NEVI funds, which is the federal program, and we're still waiting for federal guidance on that.
Yeah.
We have a plan, we put it out there, but it is fairly fluid because we're waiting for that guidance. The guidance we have so far, our plan is in compliance with the federal requirements, but we don't have all the requirements yet.
Thank you.
And I'll just add to this from my experience. Sorry.
Let me turn mine
From my experience and my standpoint, I'm a car salesman, so I deal with electric vehicles quite often and cars. And Toyota just announced major investments in electric vehicles, and they're one of the largest producers in the world. So I think looking at this from a certain standpoint as a business driver for New Hampshire as well is another aspect to keep in mind, because it'll attract a lot of people. I think we talked about range anxiety in this committee, and that might be scaring some people away from the North County, from down in Keene, those areas, Bedford. I truly think it's an investment in New Hampshire's tourism, and it'll attract business if we can come to some sort of middle ground on it. I think it would really benefit New Hampshire.
I think we're gonna get there, you know? I think we might find some money.
Well, because we are working on it,
Yeah.
it's why we have not
Yeah.
made a decision yet. So, is there
So
a-
just an update, and
Okay.
maybe by next week, you know, we'll see.
any other members of the committee have any comments or questions? Seeing none, I move to leave our executive session.
Second.
Okay, and I make a motion that we adjourn. A
Aye.
second,
Aye.
Second.
Okay. all right.
Thank
Thank-
you.
thank
Good,
you.
everybody. Progress.